Here to talk about the paranormal as we are each and every Saturday night, broadcasting on WBSM and also online at Spooky TV at SpookySouthcoast.com and right here in Patriots Bar and Grille in Bellingham.
I know. It was very nice of them to let us use the place for free tonight for a great cause.
Right, so we'll just we'll battle through our sound issues that we always have to deal with. I can.
Yeah, right. Good.
I'm going to hear you guys over the house sound, and I hear my my producer back in the studio over this microphone. So hey, it's that's what we do.
The good news is there's a lot of beer here, and that'll get us through it.
My beer is way over there.
I'll bring it to you. Hold on, just a moment.
All right, thank you. All right, so we are going to be bringing on a whole bunch of special guests over the course of the night. And, of course, if you are here at Patriots tonight and you don't get the chance to enjoy the program because, you're busy chatting and drinking and eating delicious wings, the podcast will be up. The Internet archive, the video archive will be up on YouTube. And, Jeff, this Internet thing, it's worked out pretty well for the paranormal media.
Yeah, no, it's something that we thought about just about a month ago, and we just said, hey, let's do a great cause. Let's get some toys together. It's something we did last year that was kind of impromptu, which was just, a few emails saying, let's just get together and bring a toy for Toys for Tots. And this year, look, we got, 2 huge tables full of toys. And it was just fun. It's fun to do these things and not have so much pressure of doing lectures and investigations, just people that we've become friendly with over the years getting together to have a good time and hang out with each other.
Well, what excites me most about this is you can see how giving our friends in the paranormal field really are. Because when you call on them for any type of charity event,
right,
they always come through, they always deliver.
I get lots of emails. People are asking me for autographed books for, charity events they're doing. I'm sure you get the same thing. Or can you plug my charity event on your radio show and stuff like that? Paranormal groups are doing a lot for charity all over the country, not just us. It's happening all the time. Historic preservation, animal causes, cancer causes, you name it. There are so many groups that are out there doing what they do and saying, how can we make a difference? And that doesn't get talked about enough. We hear about in the news the bad stuff when people are trespassing and things like that, but we don't hear enough about, the millions we're raising for charities when you look at across the country at all the events and everything else. These folks do a lot of good. We're like anybody else. We've got people in our lives who are affected by poverty, affected by cancer, affected by animal cruelty, you name it, and we do what we can to raise awareness and raise funds and goods for those causes.
And we also have legend trips, which we do a lot for the locations that we go to help preserve these historic locations. I mean, we've helped pay the heating bill at Fort Taber, and we've helped replace some of the floors at the Fearing Tavern.
That's always been right from the get-go. When we started that, the whole idea was, we're going to do an investigation. We're going to get people into locations they may not be able to get into on their own. But also, what can we do for these locations? What difference can we make? And we're raising thousands of dollars, to help preserve them because these folks. And I get it, I've talked to locations that look at this and say, I don't really believe in the paranormal, but I know you do, and it's brought in some money for us, and that helps us continue to do what we do. And I say, look, who cares why people are interested in your location? If they come here for the history, great. If they come here for the ghosts, great. Use that as an opportunity to teach the history. Use that as an opportunity to bring people into the fold because that's the whole picture. The whole picture isn't just the history. It isn't just the ghosts. It's everything. And we can serve that cause.
And I see some of our legend trippers out there in the crowd tonight. All of our legend trippers, make some noise.
Woo!
Yeah.
They are awesome, aren't they?
And and of course,
if I leave here tomorrow, one more line and would have to pay for that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, I think we may have paid our bill for licensed music at WBSM.
Right.
I'm not sure. So, since we have so many legend trippers here tonight, they're probably already on the insider email list, and they've already gotten the pre-sale info for our next event. But maybe we can announce it to the public right here and now.
No, let's not do it. Okay, let's.
Okay, I think we should.
You do it.
All right. Well, I'm going to mispronounce it because I always say it wrong.
It's the Houghton Mansion.
The Houghton Mansion in North Adams,
Mass. First weekend in
Mass.
April. I think it's the 6th. We are going to have a great event. It's going to be a whole weekend, not just one night. We're going to do a Friday night, Saturday afternoon, and Saturday night investigation at the Houghton Mansion in North Adams, Massachusetts. People have seen it on the first season of Ghost Adventures, which was a great episode, and it's just an amazing place. It's a Masonic temple. It's huge. So much history there that goes back through North Adams history and haunted throughout. It's going to be an amazing event.
And I'm excited because it's the furthest I've traveled in years.
Nah,
Well, with the exception of going to LA.
you and I,
but
we
yeah.
went to LA. I mean, we were on an airplane and everything.
It's the furthest I've had to drive in years.
All right.
So
And we're doing this with Ron Kolek from the New England Ghost Project. which
Ron's
is
here.
great. Ron's here. Yay, Ron.
let's make some noise for Ron Kolek.
Ron
Tell him
Kolek,
hello.
yay. And Ron does events all the time, and and Ron will be on soon enough.
Yeah, we're gonna bring you on a little
too
bit later
soon.
on in the program.
Ron's not too soon. Right, and the whole idea is, just get everybody together, do what we do, and for a great place and a great location.
All right. Well, if you've listened to the show before, again, this is the first time we've ever done it in front of an audience this big before. But if you listen to the show, you know that we like to let our hair down a little bit on the program. Well, some of us more than others.
Right.
But we like to kind of keep things loose and keep things, conversational. But I got to ask you, Jeff, and I know you don't pay a lot of attention to some of the drama that's been going on in the paranormal field, but I got to ask you about this stuff that's been out the last couple of weeks, about the idea of having to call out locations and groups for faking evidence. I just want to get your opinion on that.
Yeah. I've seen a little bit of that. The paranormal unity stuff kind of makes me crazy. I've been against it from the beginning, like straight out. I work with people who are good people, just like any field, right? It's not like, hey, we're both dentists, we have to stick together, no, there's good dentists, there's bad dentists. I think the same thing with the paranormal. I choose to work with people that I've learned to trust, and that doesn't happen, in a one meeting or a week or a month. It takes years. I mean, how long have we known each other? It's been years and years. Mm-hmm. Where you get to trust people and you get to work with them. So I think when we find someone faking evidence, faking things, you just got to sever all ties. There's no other option. Like, that's it. You're done. That's how it used to be, and I think that's how it should continue to be. If you catch someone straight out faking evidence, lying, whatever, there's so much. I don't get it, because there's so many good things out there. Like, I know you go on an investigation some nights and we strike out. We strike out most of the time.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that it's not haunted. It doesn't mean we're bad investigators. It just means that night nothing happened.
Oh, how many times have we all gone fishing and not caught or had a nibble, come back the
Right.
next day and you're pulling out, 4 or 5 keepers?
A bad day of fishing is still better than a good day of work. I mean, it's true. It's still true, and it's still true with the paranormal that we keep searching, we keep doing this stuff. But yeah, if I caught someone faking something, like, that's it. You're dead to me. Like,
Right.
I will have nothing to do with you, and that's that. And that's all I can do. I can't stop people. I can't stand on a soapbox when it comes to someone doing this. All I can do is just say, like, I'll have nothing to do with you, and that's it.
And you really can't make it your job to start being the watchdog for an
No.
entire group of people, because you'll drive yourself crazy.
But plus, like, there's people that get accused of faking things that aren't faking things. So, that's one of the things you run into as well. I just know if I see it, that's it. We're done. You'll get no mentions from me, no nothing.
Well, hopefully we can move past that, because we never have any drama. I mean, all of our drama that happens between us is because, I still owe you a round of beer. And we'll fix that later on.
Yeah, honestly, do you still owe me a beer?
I do.
I'm going to take over as hosting Spooky Southcoast while you run up to the bar. And
I could just give you money, too. That works.
No, you've been sipping on it, and I don't know where you've been. But no, I think that, at the end of the day, we're all interested in the same thing. We want answers. But it's a very individual thing. I know we're collectively doing this, but when it comes to the paranormal, like, we have individual reasons for going after it, for searching, and I'm finding those answers for me, but that doesn't mean it's going to resonate with you or Matt or anybody. But that's what drives me to it. But I also don't feel the need, and it's funny because, I think of the evidence. You know how many EVP? Ask me. Here's a question. I'm going to ask you to feed me this question, Tim.
Sure.
How many EVP have you captured, Jeff, in your 15-plus years of investigating the paranormal?
Jeff, how many EVP have you captured in your 15-plus years of investigating the paranormal?
Tim, that is an excellent question. I thank you for asking it. One, and it happened in October of this year. One. I get them never. Just this one time, and I had 10-plus witnesses. We heard this voice come through, because I always do it. I hit record, I set the thing down, we ask questions, and then play it back right away. So, if you play it back a few weeks from now, you're not going to remember that a truck drove by or whatever. And we played it back, and everyone in the room went, whoa, that didn't happen when we recorded it. Only one ever. and I just went, wow. I mean, that's really interesting.
Well, when you say one, though, have you caught things over the course of the years that you've thrown out because you couldn't quite make it out? Or is this the first time that it's ever been anything unexplained?
I don't do much with EVP. It just doesn't interest me because there's so many things like little sounds or whatever that doesn't mean anything to me, but this was a voice. I mean, it said it's me, like not only a voice, a female voice, clear as day. Everybody heard it, right away, and I went, all right, I can't deny that. That's something, and it's really interesting. For me, the most interesting paranormal evidence is always the personal experience, seeing something, hearing something, feeling something when you're out at a location, and that's only happened to me a handful of times in 15 years. But it's enough that makes me think, like, this is for real. Mm-hmm. It happens. For me, it's a very rare thing, and I recognize some people are more sensitive to it than others, but I want it to happen again, and that's why I keep doing it.
Well, keep hanging out with us.
I know, I do, and against my better judgment, I keep hanging out with you guys.
I don't know what it is about us. I mean, sooner or later, we're going to get accused of faking this stuff because we seem to have things happen to us whenever we go out there.
But the thing is, we're out there with everybody else. You're right there
at
our
right.
events.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like at Fort Tabor, right? I mean, you had a room full of people when it sounded like that whole roof collapsed.
Right.
And we didn't look around. You don't believe us? Like, go find the hidden cameras or audio or whatever, and that's stuff you live for. And it's funny because some people are like, wow, well, that was an hour ago. What's happening now? And you're like, some of this stuff is once in a lifetime, folks.
Exactly. I still close my eyes at night and hear that sound sometimes.
It's a crazy capture, and I'm so bummed I wasn't in the actual building, but I was 100 yards away, when it happened. Amazing. And
we were getting stuff in our location that you were getting in your location. The same female singing sounds were coming through in both spots.
Right, yeah. This is all at Fort Tabor in New Bedford, Mass.
We're talking we were, hundreds of yards away from each other.
Yeah, we got to go back to that place. That was cool.
My spot was active all night.
Yeah, you were in one of the batteries too, right? Yeah.
I had people walking up and down the halls swearing they're hearing somebody walking right behind them or in front of them. And we had real-time EVPs that were just one thing right after another.
And no one, only like one group had really investigated there before we did that event, and it went so well. It's nice after an event when they come up to you and they're like, so you want to come back tomorrow? It just went well all around. We raised a lot of good money for them, and everybody had a great time. We definitely got to book that place again in 2013, assuming we don't all die December 21st. That this could be it. I mean, this could be near the end.
We're making plans for things that might not ever come to fruition.
I know. It almost feels like we should just be at the bar because, I mean, if we only got like a week left, really, should we just shut the mics off here and dead air for the next hour and a half?
I think we can squeeze in a little bit more show, but I was thinking about going on the air December 21st.
You should.
10 to midnight, just on Spooky TV, and seeing what happens. My wife's like, don't you want to be huddled over in a corner with your wife and son?
Not really.
We'll be in the same house. I mean, how many broadcasting opportunities do you get like this?
Well, actually, I think it's the solstice itself, right? The actual time of the solstice is
right.
So it's not just 10 to midnight. I don't know where we're going to Google this in the next break, and we'll figure out where that solstice is.
Well, either way, I mean, I'll be broadcasting from my house, so
all right,
it works for me. You can come over if you want.
Sounds good. Will your wife bake those blondies?
She will. Have you?
So
because I know that you've always wanted to die in Wareham. So
if I've got a belly full of those blondies, I'd be okay. Those are.
You'll already be in heaven.
They are good.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll let you get back to the bar. And
you're like a real radio show, broadcasting from a bar full of people.
It's not the first time that it's happened. I think a few others have done it, but it's the first time for us.
That's what I'm saying.
So we appreciate
cool.
you.
We should do this again and again.
I would be happy doing the show from a bar every Saturday night.
I know there's beer. What's better than that?
And wings.
So,
all right.
And feel free to check back in with us more if you'd like. We're going to have a number of people stopping in during the course of the show.
I know your next guest is a big fan. In fact, I've known him for years, and he's always said, like, hey, I heard you on Spooky Southcoast. And I was like, get out of here. No one listens to that show. I go down there just to see my buddies. And he goes, no, I heard you. So I'm excited for you to talk to him. And you're going to have to ask him if he's a PhD or an MD, because I'm still not sure.
Hey, I've still been waiting to find out, too, about the credentials of Dr. Demento.
Right. Well, he's dead.
I sent him an email, and that explains why he hasn't written back.
Right. One of the highlights of my career, I had one of my songs played on Dr. Demento's show.
Excellent.
I did. It was Bragging Rights for Life. And I didn't find out about it until about a year and a half after it happened when I was looking through his archives. And it was an old Christmas thing I did, a redneck Christmas carol. One of my proudest moments, besides being on Spooky South Coast here tonight.
And the other Christmas Carol.
Right. Do you want to play that? We should later. Another week we'll play it.
If I had the ability to do 3 things at once on my computer,
Right.
maybe.
Very good.
We're working on a wing and a prayer here tonight so
I know.
far. So
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. You guys are awesome. I love you.
enjoy the rest
No,
of.
I love you. Love you.
We love you too.
All right.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your
Thank you.
Oddfest. And everybody out there who is listening on the radio that didn't make it down here tonight, you better be here next year again, provided that the Mayans allow us to do so.
Thank you. Thank you to the Mayans. Big fans.
And if you didn't get a chance to come down here and enjoy the evening with us, you can still make a donation to Toys for Tots. There's places all over that you can drop off a toy for a needy child. You can also drop some off at WBSM as well. They collect toys as well. So,
Right on.
all right, don't play with them. Those are for the kids.
There's just a few that I'm like, I could repackage it.
I brought the Nerf dart set thinking that was probably going to end up getting opened here tonight by somebody.
If you get shot by a Nerf bullet, you know it was me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm asking for trouble. All right, let's bring on our next guest. Thank you, Jeff. Round of applause for Jeff Belanger, everybody. All right. Our next guest, you've seen him on 30-odd Minutes and on his own program as well. As Jeff said, he's a big fan of Spooky South Coast. We're glad to finally get him on the show, the one, the only Dr. Dreck. And I got to let you know, you're on camera, and you're not in character. So
I'm not incognito tonight.
But,
I have to be myself. That's rather difficult.
Well, if you want to be yourself.
Maybe if I cover my hand with one eye.
Well, why don't you let everybody know who you are really? And
I am really Michael Ledgy, and I've been around for 59 years on Earth, and I've been doing. We may have started the radio show and my TV show approximately the same time, 2004. Is that about?
We're 2006.
Oh,
So
you're a little bit off, yeah.
You've been around a little bit longer than us.
A little bit longer than us, yeah. We
And-
started 2004. Yeah.
And when you started portraying, I mean, is the Dr. Dreck character something that you came up with even before there was a TV show, or was he tailored? Because I know that you said you do some theater work.
Well, it was, well, like a lot of things, but I think maybe like the way Jeff started 30-odd Minutes, it seems like something fun to do. And
It was a good idea at the time.
it seemed like a good idea at the time. And I have my girlfriend as the co-host. She's a zombie co-host. Not in real life, just on the show. She's much more active in real life. But we literally do it in the basement. The show, that is. We do it in the basement. I thought, oh, well, this will be fun for about a year. And here it is 8 years later, and we're still doing it. And it gets more and more elaborate as the years go by. It's fun.
And getting involved in it, was it wanting to recreate? Because you said earlier that you're a child of the '60s.
Yes.
And so you were used to seeing these type of shows on UHF channels during your childhood. Was it a desire on your own part to relive that and to be able to bring that out into the world, or did you want that next generation to see what it was that you saw growing up?
Well, it's a lot like that because, like I was saying, I grew up in the '60s and I lived in this area all my life. And during that time, there was like just 3 stations: Channel 7, Channel 5, and Channel 4, and that Providence, Channel 12. And both of them, Channel 12 had a horror theater on it Friday nights called Chiller, and Channel 7 had phantasmic features with this little space alien called Feep, who was really the guy that played Major Mudd, Ed McDonald. And so I grew up watching all these great fun old B science fiction movies and horror films. I just loved them. And years later, I was reading in a magazine, Scary Monsters is called, the magazine, and I was seeing that all these different horror hosts were popping up, but on public access, because stations won't touch them anymore except for Spengoli. He's still around, but and I said, look at all these guys doing this. Our local station here doesn't have much going on at the time. I said, why don't we do this? And I got her to do it, and we started getting public domain. It has to be public domain movies, or you get in trouble. And we started doing that get them from the Internet Archive and places like that.
But there is such a wealth of those films available
Yes.
in the public domain. It's amazing to me that things that I watched growing up on Creature Double Feature and
Yep.
shows like that are now out there for anybody to be able to utilize. And I mean, granted, we're not talking about Oscar winners, but they're still enjoyable films and they still resonate with people even today.
And a lot of gems have fallen through the cracks. Night of the Living Dead is one of them, because it had a different title when they first released it, and then when they changed the title, they forgot to put the copyright on it, and it just fell right into public domain because of that one little mistake. So, and there's a lot of movies that are really old from the 30s that they never renewed the copyright, because that's before 1978. You had to renew it every 28 years. You had 2 terms of 28 years, and if they didn't renew it in the second 28 years, it was automatically public domain. So there's a lot of them like that floating around too.
Oh my God, it's Dr. Dreck!
It's your biggest fan, literally. All 6'3" of them.
All 6'3".
So when you are culling through the archive, the Internet Archive, and trying to find more films, and I'm sure you're like me, you go into Walmart and you see those dollar DVDs
Yep,
on there
yep,
that are copyright free. You want to grab those up. I mean, every time you're going through these, is it like reliving your childhood again, or are you finding things that you never even knew existed?
Well, the thing was that before I started the show, I was already a movie collector. I had like a few hundred DVDs in my collection, and it just happened that a lot of them were the public domain stuff because that's what I liked. And so when I started the show, it was easy. So it's very rare that I run across some obscurity that, I never saw this before. Actually, one of them's coming up this Christmas, though. It's a Roger Corman movie called The Undead, which sounds like it should be a vampire film, but it's actually about reincarnation. I've never seen it before, and so it's going to be fun to watch that for the Christmas show.
Now, when you started putting these films on your show, I mean, is it a matter of following the template of the horror host before, of, you introduce the film, and then you run as part of it, and then you have a little break and a little cut-in? I mean, how do you find the balance between having your character and having the film stand up on its own as well? Because we live in an age where people want to just, Mystery Science Theater 3000,
Yep.
all of these films.
One of the things I was determined to do was have more of a retro type of horror host show. Since I'm a filmmaker myself, I know how easy it is to sit in your living room half soused and make fun of a movie as you watch it. And I let the movies stand on their own. I mean, I know that a lot of them aren't very good, or they're silly, but to me they're fun. The worst thing you can be is boring. So I try not to show those movies. But usually there's something, even the most outlandish movie will have something going for it in some ways. So I don't make fun of them because I love them. It's all we do is we do little bits, 2 or 3 in between, and something related to the film.
It's amazing too how many of those films, even though they're low budget and they don't really they don't stand the test of time, but when you look at some of these films, you find shots or storylines or things that influence filmmakers down the line.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these are the things that George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Tobe Hooper, these are what they watched growing up.
Yeah.
And then they kind of carry that into their own work in our more modern era.
Yeah, well, Alien, the movie Alien, obviously borrowed from The Terror from Beyond Space, which was about an alien that was stowaway on board, killing off the crew one by one. And there was another movie called Night of the Blood Beast, and that had an alien impregnated into a man, and it was growing within him. So if you take those 2 plot lines, you've got Alien. So those things come up. It's.
It is filmmaking is a genre where everybody borrows from everybody,
Yeah.
but they have this great word homage that they can throw out there that allows you to take it from one to the other. Well, look who it is.
Look who it is.
It's the one and the only Bigfoot. Dina, we found him.
Hey, not Yeti.
There he is. It's hard to ask a follow-up question after an appearance from Bigfoot.
That's right.
Santa Squatch.
But yeah, it is. It's a Christmas miracle. But I do want to ask you though about how you feel about the current state of both horror films and sci-fi films. It seems like the sci-fi films with the CGI effects are getting bigger and better, and they're to the point where it's almost seamless. To believe that some of these things are really happening. And then the horror films, I think, have kind of taken a step back and gone away from the special effects in recent years with films like Paranormal Activity and these more, subtle scares.
Right, yeah. But the only problem that seems to, I think, have arisen over the past few decades is that the effects are the movie. They're forgetting story and characters and things like that. And that, they're not all like that, but a lot of them are. And I've always had a bit of a pet peeve about some of the modern horror films that they seem to always end bad.
You're right.
Everybody gets killed nowadays. I was talking to somebody the other day. If they remade the Texas Chainsaw Massacre today, she would get killed because in the original she got away. But nowadays she'd get killed. And it's movies. They might say, "Oh, a happy ending is just so stupid and sappy and cliche," but to me, it's a story. Real life sucks enough.
Right.
Why, if somebody goes through hell in a horror film, why don't you let somebody live?
I recently spent a weekend watching some of these, demonic possession movies that have come out. The Devil Inside and The Last Exorcism, films like this, and it's what I call the M. Night Shyamalan effect, where they all feel like they need to have a twist ending, to the point where you're robbing the film, the viewer, of being able to enjoy the film from beginning to end because you want to have that little twist and they feel cheated by it at the end. I think that's kind of disillusioning some people.
In a lot of movies I see too, they look like, all right, this is where you should end, but they don't. They go another 20 minutes or so, and then louse it up somehow.
Right, and I shouldn't actually just blame M. Night Shyamalan. I should blame the Blair Witch Project as well, because they're all following in those footsteps of the found footage movies, the shaky handheld camera, and then the kid staring at the wall in the basement at the end. So it's that's where it's going, and it's got to come back. The golden age of horror, in my opinion. You had those 30s and 40s films where they did as much as they could considering the censorship at the time. And then the real golden age after that came in the 70s when they were able to push the envelope a little bit with films like The Omen and The Exorcist. Maybe we can get back to those days.
Yeah, well, that would be kind of refreshing after a lot of what's gone on over the years. But I think what's interesting about the really older ones is that what was considered crazy then, like mad scientist stuff, isn't crazy anymore. Like there's an old Boris Karloff movie where he is inventing an artificial heart, and another one where he's doing cryogenics and he's the mad scientist, but not anymore, So
because that's reality today.
Yeah.
And now that I know a mad scientist in real life, well, two now.
Well, technically, I'm an angry scientist.
That's true. But the crazy label does still apply.
Okay.
But I think now we're starting to have an appreciation more for those older films. So I'm glad that programs such as yours can bring them back for people, and just the fact that you can have fun with television. It's become so commercialized in the broadcast networks. TV's not really fun anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you know what I mean when I say that. I admire anybody that does anything on a shoestring, because then you need ingenuity, you need resourcefulness. Somebody hands you a pile of money, you can do almost anything you want. But you need if you got dedication, you don't need all that money. You can still turn out something good and decent with pocket change, as far as I'm concerned. But that's how I spend my whole life, is on pocket change. So.
Well, why don't you let everybody know how they can find Dr. Dreck? Of course, it's probably playing on their local cable access station, but...
the easiest thing is it does stream over abmi8.org. In this area, it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 10. But we're also, much like 30 Odd Minutes, we're distributed through PEG Media, and we're in about 30 states or so. So that depends on each individual station. I know you get it in Wareham, but I have no idea when they show it in Wareham.
I don't know. It's really like with
random.
Yeah, with shows such as yours and even 30 Odd Minutes, it's kind of one of those whenever they need to fill time.
Yeah.
Which is great because that's how you find a different audience all the time.
Yeah, that's a lot of times I've gotten fan mail from people that just accidentally found it and they have become fans. I am speaking of 30 Odd Minutes, though, I am proud to say that on PEG Media, 30 Odd Minutes and Dungeon of Dr. Dreck is on the top 50 most downloaded shows.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent. Yeah, but that's the thing. Like when I was a kid, I used to find these movies by falling asleep with the TV on, waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's House of Dracula,
Right.
a film that never would have been shown any other time. And the good thing about programs like yours is being on cable access, it's become the new UHF channel. You
Right,
go
yeah.
to bed with that channel on because you never know what you're going to find when you wake up in the middle of the night. So.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us and for doing what you do.
My pleasure.
Everybody, how about a big hand for Dr. Dreck? All right, we have about 25 minutes left in this hour before we have to take a break for the news down there in the real life section of radio, which is what we call our time to refuel at the bar. So why don't we bring on Ron Kolek of the New England Ghost Project and Anne Kerrigan, the blonde bombshell right here on Spooky South Coast. Hello, how you doing? You are both
Awesome.
dressed very festively.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we're both very
We're
naughty.
very naughty.
All right, well,
We don't, it's just an honor and a privilege to be here with Spooky South Coast because,
Absolutely.
we're actually one of your friends. If you go on your page and go through the list of 6,000 names on it, you will find our name on there somewhere. in there.
Somewhere.
the trick that we learned a long time ago about building an audience is just accept everybody. That's how I got the audience. That's how I got my co-hosts.
Whether you like them or not. No.
Just let everybody through the door, and things tend to work out.
So Tim, how long have you been doing this, seriously?
Since January of 2006, so we're coming up on our 7th anniversary.
Ah, right.
That's pretty
Wow.
cool. Yeah.
And it's 7 years of each year saying, this might be the last year that we end up doing this, because sooner or later they're going to catch on that we don't really know what we're doing. But every year we fool them for another 365 days. So
I mean, it's awesome.
That's
You
awesome.
guys have been, would you say 2006?
2006.
yeah,
So 6 years?
That's funny because
Yes.
when I formed my first investigative team, East Bridgewater's Most Haunted, and Penny Dreadful,
Right?
our friend Penny, pointed me your way, and I was supposed to be on your show, and then I couldn't. And I think that must have been when you first started, because I think I know in January of that
It's a
year.
long
Yeah,
story.
it is a long story. It's
Yeah,
the Reader's
well,
Digest version, but yes, we all came out about the same time.
and it is funny how a lot of people look back at Ghost Hunters as being the spark in terms of the media of getting people interested in this, and that may hold some truth, but I think that the wave that came after that has really set the tone for what goes on now. I mean, East Bridgewater's Most Haunted was one of the first cable access shows to actually be out there doing this and be out there investigating and taking that.
We did.
One of the first.
Bigfoot.
And
We did, yeah. We had a great
Not the
little
first.
run. Not the first, but
No,
I
but
know.
The
amongst
New
the
England
first.
Ghost Project.
Well, were you
Well,
on
we don't-
local cable access?
Yes. That's where
Yeah,
it started. the
okay,
whole
well,
ghost thing.
fine.
we didn't get your show down our way because
That's right.
they didn't have Peg Media then to
Yeah.
distribute them all.
What?
But, back then you had to deliver the tapes to the stations.
You
It
had,
was,
literally had
absolutely.
to bicycle
Now
them.
they've moved up to DVD and download technology, so
Right.
You
works a
know what's
lot
funny
easier.
is I actually had the first reality ghost hunting show on commercial TV.
Really?
Yeah, which was WNDS and what's the matter, my pom-pom getting you
Yeah,
away?
it's in the way.
Oh, it's too bad. Anyways, it was on WNDS, the Weird Al station. Remember him? Weird Al. Good evening, everyone. Yeah. So that was the first show. It was on there, and that show back then I used to shoot it on Super VHS,
Right.
and the station could only carry it on 3/4 inch. Okay. So what they had to do was take the Super
before my
VHS,
time.
wait a minute, Super VHS, step it down to VHS, and then bring it back up to 3/4 inch
Wow.
for the show. So it was like brutal.
So the real question is, why didn't you just get a camera that they could use the film from?
Excuse me?
Why didn't you just get an easier camera?
Money?
There you go.
But you know, Tim, Spooky South Coast has been on 6 years. I mean, if you go on the internet now, there are tons and tons of radio shows, paranormal ones. And everybody thinks it's just really easy thing to do. And they
Right.
go out there and they start a show. And they don't understand the commitment like that you guys have put in and Ghost Chronicles have put into these shows. Because it's not easy getting people every week to come in the show. It's not easy for you to go in to do the show yourself. There's a lot of work to it, and I really give you guys kudos for that. And so many of the early shows are gone. I mean, there aren't that many that are left.
And likewise for what you do. I mean, I remember listening to your show on Ghost Village as being one of the foundations of what we were going to do, and I tried to listen to as many of them that were out there to see who does it right and who does it wrong. And your show is one of the ones that you can hear they do it right, because you don't take it too seriously. You have fun, and you've created an environment where people can come forward and share information with you and not feel like they're going to be judged for it. And that's something that didn't exist until this current wave of media. I mean, before, if somebody called into Art Bell, they were worried about whether or not their coworkers happened to be listening to Art Bell and hearing them tell that story, not realizing that if your coworkers listening to Art Bell, they're probably into it too.
Yeah, right.
It's a safer environment to share our experiences than it was before, and we only get 50% raised eyebrows is what we used to get.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about it is, people go into these radio shows for the wrong reason nowadays. They're just really in for the fame. They say,
right.
Oh, that's all they want. I have a radio show, or I've got a book out, and that's it. I mean, you've been helping people for 6 years, and they say, well, how are you helping people? You're talking about subjects that people are leery to talk about, and especially back in the day.
Well, you mentioned people thinking that they can just get into this side of the paranormal because they see everybody else doing it,
right.
And that's true for the entire field. They feel like they can get out there and be investigators because they're watching it on TV and they're saying, oh, well, if these plumbers from Rhode Island can do it, so can I. And you've been an investigator long before you were involved in the media aspect of it. How do you feel about the current wave of new investigators and the way that they're approaching what they call the paranormal field?
Well, the interesting thing about that is I really can't say anything about it because I'm one of the reasons they're out there, is that through all these years that I've been doing it, I've been running events and everything else, and I've been teaching people how to do it and everything else. Then the TV shows came along. I mean, I was out before the TV shows, but then they came along, they've added to it. So, I mean, the same with you. I mean, we are part of the why all these groups are out there. They see people like you, they see people like me, and the Mario brothers, and that's why.
And you teach courses in the paranormal, so you must have people that come up to you, and they're telling you why they want to do this, but you can tell with some of them they're into it just because they see it as being their ticket to fame. They think if anybody can get out there and do this, then so can I, and I'm going to get a TV show, and you can kind of gauge, I'm sure, which ones are in it for the right reasons and which ones aren't.
Yeah, I know, and the interesting thing about it is it really the wrong reason? I mean, they're doing it for the thrill of it, or fame, or depending what particular agenda they have. There are some people who just want to go out there and be scared, and that. They go to your events, and they go to my events. They want to, have some experience themselves. They don't really care about what anybody else is. So is that necessarily wrong? No, not necessarily, but where it becomes to cross the line is when these people go into private homes and stuff, and they start dealing with people who have serious problems, not necessarily paranormal either.
There is a lot of that too. It hurts other groups when somebody goes into a private residence and can't conduct themselves in the proper manner. They don't realize that not only are you besmirching the name of your group, but you're also hurting everybody else, because to the average person, they don't know the difference between New England Ghost Project and some other group, or some of the different paranormal teams that we have represented here. To them, they think that we all work together, and here we do, but in other parts of the country they don't. And they think that the way one operates is going to be the way another one does, and you're hurting. There's nothing else I can think of. I mean, even science. You're we'll call you a I don't want to say you're a fringe scientist necessarily, but you don't always think inside the science box.
It's a science degree, right, Pat?
Yeah, I've been working as a scientist for the past 22 years, okay? And when I'm working as a scientist and then trying to explain what my passion is outside of it, I get the public look of, like, what are you doing? You're crazy and stuff like that. The moment, everybody else is gone, individuals come up. So, what have you found? What can you show me? What can you know? They're brave. They're brave in the sense when they're in a group, being skeptical. But as individuals, like I said, time and time again, they're curious. They just have the ability to, or the desire to really step beyond and take what it really takes to look. A lot of people, here's a good example. Well, there's nothing to this. And my response is, well, how do you know? Well, science has proven this. Okay? Can you show me where that has been documented? And I've asked this of professors and things like that. No, there's no proof. It's the 800-pound gorilla that's in the room that nobody wants to talk about. They don't want to take it on full hand, and because if they did, it would have caused them to have to answer other questions that they don't want to answer and things like that. But
when I get into this, one thing I would, some people don't like to talk about it. I always talk about it. I mean, I've always been media friendly, and I think that's part of what I do is to educate and make people aware that there is something out there we don't understand. But I used to sit on the Harvard Pilgrim Appeals Board, and I sat with lawyers, doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, the heads of the thing. They all knew what I did, and I'd always have to go to the meetings early because they wanted to hear what was going on. What have I witnessed? What have I experienced? And they only had their own experience as well.
Everybody has a story.
Yeah.
Everybody has a story. Nobody, they'll deny it until, like you said, Matt, no one else is around. And then suddenly they have a story they need to tell you.
Yes.
And that happens time and time and time again. And people, when I tell them, what I do, they're totally intrigued. And then it's like, oh, well, can I talk to you? Sure.
And it's become less about, oh, I don't believe in that stuff, and more about, well, I have something I'd like to tell you. Let me know what you think.
Right.
And before it was so taboo to talk about with people, and now I find I don't even have to bring it up, and people just seem to know. Like I'll go to a yard sale and people will start telling me what objects are haunted.
I love that. I wanted to ask you is do you find in the field itself that people have their own opinions on way things should be done, for instance, and they're more openly criticizing you if you don't go along with it?
Right, and that's something that we've been dealing with the last few weeks is the idea that there needs to be one method of doing everything.
Does it really?
And that seems to be what everybody is preaching, but what they're not realizing is they're all preaching the one way that everybody should do something is the way that they've seen it done on television. They're not picking the brains of somebody who is a scientist or somebody who has been doing this for a long time and saying, gee, what works and what doesn't work. It's all we've got to fall in line because we all have to be like ghost hunters, like Ghost Adventures. And when you do that, you're pigeonholing yourself, I think, because we get activity and we get results from different types of approaches. So, I'm not a fan of one rules and regulations to follow. There should be some method, some conduct,
guidelines?
some guidelines for conduct. But in terms of actually trying to investigate, the more strange the idea, the more I'm willing to give it a shot.
Well, that's how things actually advance in science. You have your baseline stuff that you do, your normal plotted out SOP, your protocol is all written from beginning to end, and what you plan to do and what your theoretical results are going to be. Setting up something like that is fine for people that actually want to follow that type of protocol, and that's all well and good. But as far as I'm concerned, anything that you do that generates data should be utilized. I don't care if it's using a psychic or not using it. Microphone. Technical issues. No, anything that gives you an extra piece of information is useful. It's all useful.
Right.
So if you want to limit yourself to just this, then you're not really doing science, you're just doing stuff that's rote.
Well, and Ron, I know that you work with a number of different devices in your investigation, but you also work with a number of different mediums and psychics, too. You're willing to try all different approaches yourself.
Right. Especially when I first started and I started working with a trance medium, I took a lot of crap. Because, they'll say, how can you do a scientific approach, if there is such a thing as a scientific approach, by the way. and use a psychic. Well, I consider a psychic is another tool in my toolbox. If I can get more information, why not? I mean, is it proof? No, absolutely not. You know that, and I know that, because in reality, we don't even know what a ghost is.
Right.
I mean, we have our beliefs what they are, but we have no clear proof of what a ghost is.
And we say, you know, how can we accept the word of a medium, or especially a trance medium, as being proof? But at the same time, you have people that will trust in these devices that are being essentially misused because they're not being used for what they were intended for, and they're being reapplied to a different approach, and so there's no guarantee that what's coming out of those is right either.
Yeah, I mean, I taught Anne how to dowse. I mean, when I first met Anne years ago at Fort Revere, right?
Yes.
But
Me
I
too.
mean, here's
Legendary.
here's an old method of communicating with the dead. Is it scientific? What is scientific again? What does that word mean, scientific? Is it an instrument? Yes, it's an instrument. Is it a
No, science is application.
exactly?
Yeah.
And you got to realize that what we do is field work. It's not laboratory work.
Right.
I mean, in a real scientific approach, you should have control. We can't do that.
The way that I like to look at it is look at something like music. You can have people who are the most technically gifted musicians, and they know the mathematical formula for putting together a song. That might work out great, but it still might not be as good and have the same vibe as somebody who just plays from the heart and plays what they feel. And I liken ghosts, for people that ask me, you know, how do you study this scientifically? I say that a ghost isn't a physical thing. A ghost isn't a verifiable thing. A ghost to me is like an emotion, and you can't really investigate love. You can't really investigate hate. You know, you can only feel them, perceive them, and hope to understand them, and that's the way that I feel that a ghost is. And so that's where I kind of draw. And I'm the most emotionally shut off person in the world, so the fact that I can even have encounters with ghosts is amazing to me. Although, you know, if you prick me, I will bleed. So don't get any ideas about sticking anything sharp in me to make sure.
I've seen some of the cool stuff that you guys have caught. I remember the camera moving at Lizzie Borden House and everything else. So do you consider that as proof of spirit, as a ghost, as a spirit of someone, or as what do you?
Well, I was gonna say I'll let you handle that because
Oh, if you want
it's
me to
your
handle it.
footage.
What it shows to me is it shows that there is a force at work. Do I understand what that force is? No. It's just a piece of data that lends basically a point towards it being some form of force that's measurable. I know that camera weighs this much. I know that it takes this many, pounds of Newton force to move it this far at this speed, which means that there's so much energy that's applied. What generated that energy to move it and whatever, that's further on down the line for me. I'm still just trying to establish the fact that there's a force that's being applied here. Okay, then once we start measuring it, then we might be able to start figuring out what force it is, or force is. It may be more than one. Yeah, if we can. But the first part is establishing, okay, there's something here. And with that footage, to me, it shows that something existed there to move it, some force. We know for a fact that it wasn't any other force emitted by any of us. It moved on its own accord. What force used it to move on its own accord, that's what we're there to keep looking at.
I've kind of made the decision that I know that this stuff exists. I know that it's there, and no matter what I do and what I catch, I'm not going to be able to prove it to somebody that doesn't believe. And so for me, all it is just to keep reassuring to me that there is something else there. And I'm not looking at it necessarily as proof of the existence of the paranormal. I'm just looking at it as a way to kind of almost quantify how far we can push the paranormal. You know, if you can move the camera, then what else can you do? How can we gauge what your level is of interaction with our world? And if that's the case, can we make it so that it can happen more easily? Can we make it so that the person that does have a skeptic approach to it can have their own experience and have their mind changed? To me, there's no... You're never going to catch what the holy grail that everybody says they're looking for. It's never going to happen because so many people are just fundamentally opposed to the idea of the existence of ghosts anyway. you're talking about one of the only things out there that affects people's scientific beliefs, affects their religious beliefs, and affects their personal own emotional beliefs. So, if to me, yes, the camera was moved by something that I couldn't see and a presence that I knew was there, but I'm not going to expect somebody else to buy it if they weren't there to see it themselves.
What's interesting, Tim, is that I'm like you. I would like to get something that would be really positive proof or something. But it's so interesting. I mean, I'm open-minded to find that and to achieve it. Yet when someone sends me a picture, and this happened to me, someone sent me a picture and said, I've got this picture of a ghost. Can you see it? And I look at it, and I don't see anything. And she says, the little girl. The little girl was not there in the picture. All right, I'm looking at a picture, and there's a little girl in it. So what if this was the Holy Grail of thing? What if this really was a ghost? I mean, I wasn't there, so I can't really verify it one way or the other. To me, even though I'm open-minded and want to believe in it, I still can't accept that this little girl was a ghost because I wasn't there. I don't have a certain. And I still have that skepticism in my mind.
The only thing we can offer to them is what might be creating false positives, and then they don't want to hear it.
Right.
So it's like, no, I don't have a strap on my camera. Like, I know what a camera strap looks like, lady. That's a camera strap. But anyway.
I mean, that's like a camera strap, but I mean, if we're talking like a full apparition,
right,
three-dimensional, I mean, it's a little difficult. Like, first thing I looked for was the shadow, which I couldn't see. So. And
then you have to go through the ghost apps and see all the different ghosts that they have stored in there.
This was before then, but when it first came out. But the other, the thing, I teach a course in paranormal CSI at Northern Essex Community College, right? And I've taken some crap for it because I do it. But nobody really looked at it to understand what the course is about. Basically, we have a 6-week course. We go into a haunted location. I teach you how to use the equipment we have. All right. I'm not verifying the equipment or say legitimizing the equipment. I'm just saying this is the equipment they use. Okay. And what you have to do is go through it and collect evidence, and then analyze the evidence and tell me who haunts the place, why you think it haunts it, what evidence you have to collect. So we do it as individually and then as a class. And so it's to teach people how to understand using CSI techniques to a thing it's difficult to even talk about.
Well, I mean, it sounds like a very good approach to taking it, and you're not showing people one way either. You're just giving people the footprint.
Amazing.
And
now Matt just showed me a photograph. It's two people with a guy in the thing, right?
The guy in the middle was not there when the photograph was taken. This is Bunratty Castle in Ireland.
Did you take that picture?
No, I know the person, individual. This is what I mean. People that know me in my laboratory know I'm into this stuff, and this is another guy that repairs instruments similar to like what I work with and stuff like that. And somebody told me that this guy wants to show me something because the word got around that
about a minute, Matt,
that I do this stuff, and he's like, here, I want to show you this. This is what I found. That's what I mean. People, come up out of the woodwork.
All right, so, and of course, Ghost Chronicles, people can listen to it online. We want to give everybody the information. We have about 30 seconds.
We're on toginet.com. Para-X.
Ghost Channel.
And the Ghost Channel and beyond.
Yep, yeah. We also do Ghost Chronicles Modern Edition on WCCM as well. So thank you, Tim. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ron Kolek and Anne Kerrigan. We are going to take a break now for the news. When we come back on the other side, we'll have more Spooky Southcoast live from Patriots Bar and Grille in Bellingham at Oddfest 2012. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more here on Spooky Southcoast. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Who's your
Yeah. I'll get to them. Pat, just let us know. We're back. Matt, are you there? Helps if I turn my headphones on. Are you there, Matt? Okay, now I can hear you, yes, because I turned on my headphones. Sure. No. Excellent. All right, welcome back. Hour number 2 of Spooky Southcoast here from Patriots Bar and Grille in Bellingham. Oddfest 2012. Yeah, that's a crowd that's been drinking, if there ever was one. And we are here, of course, for Oddfest 2012. 30-odd Minutes is putting it on. Jeff Belanger and his group of oddballs, which, of course, Matt Moniz is one of the oddballs. And which one is the oddest out of all of the oddballs on the show, I mean?
That would be me.
Okay. That's what I would have assumed, too. So we are going to keep going here with our format here, bringing in some of the guests that are here at Oddfest. And I want to say hi to everybody out there that came out for this. And I see so many of our friends out there, and I see some of our enemies as well. But speaking of our...
Surprise out for me, huh?
Speaking of friends, we're joined by one of our good friends, Carl Johnson.
Yes,
and
glad
Carl,
to be
you did
here.
a great job reading The Raven on the 30-odd minutes.
Thank you
that we
very
taped.
much. It's impossible for me to read The Raven without becoming involved in it. You know, I feel it at the time.
And you, of course, have been studying literature for probably your entire life, right?
Yes, I have, actually. I've always been, a fan of Edgar Allan Poe. And I know Edgar Allan Poe lived in Providence for some time. I don't think I'll be the only one to recite The Raven publicly. Matt Moniz, he and I rehearsed that once at the Ladd Observatory.
Yeah, we've been known to, belt it out once or twice.
Yeah, we'll manage.
And of course, you're also known for your work with H.P. Lovecraft as well.
Oh yes, I am the director and founder of the H.P. Lovecraft Commemorative Activities Committee, which exists for about 2 weeks during the year at different times in August and in March. And I present an annual public literary tribute to H.P. Lovecraft. That's usually staged at the Ladd Observatory. Although H.P. Lovecraft did go into the Providence Athenaeum, he could not afford the membership dues, so he was never a member of the Providence Athenaeum. But he did frequent Ladd Observatory in his teen years. So we staged the H.P. Lovecraft literary tribute. It's called the H.P. Lovecraft Service of Tribute at Ladd Observatory either in late March or early April.
And I think that there's been a real a refocusing on the works of Lovecraft in the years recently, because I think as people are going more toward with the ebooks,
yes,
and they're finding more of his work that way, because you can download his entire library and it doesn't cost anything. I mean, most people are able to get it as a free download, and they're rediscovering his works that way.
You're correct, Tim. Lovecraft is more accessible to people now. 25, 30 years ago, to read H.P. Lovecraft, you had to go to the library. Usually somebody had to look around for works of H.P. Lovecraft, or you found paperback books. Now, H.P. Lovecraft is out there. You can, through ebooks, read his works, and he has a whole new legion of fans, of interest in H.P. Lovecraft. It seems on the rise, and we're talking 76 years next year after his departure. So there's going to be an event held in Providence from August 23rd to August 25th, 2013, called Necronomicon. That is going to be held in the Providence Biltmore Hotel, the Omni Biltmore. And already a lot of reservations have come in for this event. So, interestingly, Lovecraft's popularity is on the rise. And as you point out, I think it's because he's more accessible. More people are discovering H.P. Lovecraft, Howard Phillips Lovecraft, who lived most of his life in Providence, Rhode Island, apart from a 2-year stint in Brooklyn, New York when he was married. Once that marriage was dissolved, he returned to his beloved Providence. He was like a homesick boy. He wanted to return to Providence. In fact, on H.P. Lovecraft's headstone in Swan Point Cemetery, his only epitaph, besides the dates of his birth and death, are "I am Providence," a quote from one of H.P. Lovecraft's letters. "I am Providence," because he identified with his home city.
And of course, you mentioned the Providence Biltmore and that event that you were talking about, Necromonica. I got to start pronouncing it so that I get it right to help promote it. But that hotel is said to be haunted too. I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to check out any of the stories from there, but I've heard some stories over the years from people that have stayed there that said that, you know, some of them said they won't go back and some of them said they can't wait to go back, but it's all in relation to the ghostly activity there.
In the hallways and the corridors of the Biltmore Hotel, a man is seen in somewhat old-fashioned attire, but he looks so solid and so normal that people wonder where he went. They turn around and he's gone. That's the spirit that's in the Biltmore Hotel, and there are so many old structures in Providence that have their resident ghost. The Providence Athenaeum Library has Edgar Allan Poe sitting out on the front steps. And more than a few people have attested to seeing the shade of Edgar Allan Poe sitting on the front steps of the Providence Athenaeum. What's interesting is that their stories are so consistent, and different people at different times report seeing Edgar Allan Poe. They're recognized from portraits on the steps of the Athenaeum. Biltmore has that shade, the apparition of a man. I could go on. They're just... H.P. Lovecraft seems to haunt the Ladd Observatory up on Hope Street, the corner of Hope and Doyle Street, Doyle Avenue. When H.P. Lovecraft is mentioned, sometimes noises sound, things go clanging. You could get some results if you mention the name of H.P. Lovecraft at Ladd Observatory. And as I mentioned a minute ago, that's where H.P. Lovecraft used to spend some time. As a teenager, he would bicycle up from Wayland Square and observe the movements of the stars and the planets through the giant telescope. They have a 12-inch refractor telescope built in 1891, housed in Ladd Observatory. That's where H.P. Lovecraft studied the stars, looking through the lens of that telescope, and it's still there.
Wow. And of course, speaking of historic locations around Rhode Island and some of the haunts, you're known for your work at Slater Mill, and you were there for our event that we had there last April. And still to this day, I'm hearing from people coming back and talking about the experiences that they had there. It must be great for you to be there all the time with the ghost tours that go through and just the regular tours coming through, to see people being able to have those experiences again and again.
Well, I work in the tourism industry, so it's seasonal. Right now we're in the slow season, but I feel myself so fortunate to work at a place. I have access to a site that is known for having haunted activity, and this preceded my time at Slater Mill. Wednesday before last, I was overseeing the mill while the Weavers Guild was having a function upstairs in Slater Mill, and a lady told me she'd like to wait downstairs, and I said, "Oh, I know it's kind of spooky upstairs," just joking with her. And she told me, "Oh, I know about that. My daughter had an experience 12 years ago when she was in high school." She told me that her daughter saw the little girl in the old house, the Sylvanus Brown house, which is the 1758 cottage on the grounds. So people were seeing the little girl way before I started at Slater Mill 6.5 years ago. And yes, of course, I vividly remember the event of April 21st this year. And even tonight, people have come up to me and told me some of their experience they had there that evening. They heard the laughter of the little girl in the Sylvanus Brown house, and experiences in the two mills, the other two buildings on the site. It keeps it interesting. It's a fascinating place to work.
And it seems like, and you're of course there all the time when there's nobody else around,
Often.
and you get to have the place to yourself. And
Yeah.
do you still investigate there, or do you kind of just have you made such a close relationship with the spirits there that it's
Oh,
different?
I built up kind of a rapport with them. They don't always answer me, but I've got to say it's still a little spooky when I'm there alone. It's 11 p.m., 12 a.m., and I'm locking up, and I have to go through the rooms to make sure all the doors are secured and lights are off. And when you see that red exit sign gleaming reflected on the boards of the floor, it's kind of eerie being there still. This past February, I was closing up that cottage, the Sylvanus Brown House, named for one of the owners of the house. And just as I was about to enter my code into the panel for the motion sensor, I opened up the panel, was just about to put my code into the LED screen, and I heard two footfalls about 4 feet away from me. And I said to myself out loud, because it was comforting, I talked to myself there, I said, I want to see something. I'm not sure I want to see it just now. But I did look, I didn't see anyone. That's no rodent. Those were two heavy footfalls right next to me. And that's pretty much commonplace at Slater Mill. Virtually all those employed or have been employed at Slater Mill have some kind of unexplained encounter of the sort. I have heard disembodied voices there so often that I recognize some of them. Now, it doesn't happen every day, but I'll tell you quickly about one instance there. We had been in a lull in 2010. There was no reports of paranormal activity for 2 months, which is a long time for Slater Mill site. Then one of my colleagues, Jay, who gives tours there and does maintenance, he was vacuuming upstairs in Slater Mill site, actually in the Slater Mill building proper, and he had moved some dress forms from the 1940s out of his way to vacuum. He did some vacuuming. When he turned around, those 8 dress forms had moved in around him in a semicircle. That's about the eeriest story I remember, Slater Mill. If you see these headless dress forms, you know why that would be eerie. But they had moved their way silently around him when he turned around. Wow. So, then the paranormal activity had come back. Then I was giving a tour that May in the Sylvanus Brown House. We heard some thumping and footsteps in the upstairs when I was downstairs in the kitchen area. I said to our tourist, excuse me, folks, I have to check that out. Went upstairs, the door was secure, nobody was up there, so I said to myself, yes, it's come back. There can be lulls. I don't know what steps up the paranormal activity at Slater Mill site. I don't know why there are lulls and then it comes back, but it's never away for too long.
It's such a perfect location to have activity happen because you've got the history of the site.
Yes.
You've got all that fieldstone that's been brought in that can help hold in the activity. You've got the running water right there from the river. I mean, if any place is going to be haunted, it's the Slater Mill site.
Yes. Ultimately, we don't know why some sites that seem like they should be haunted apparently aren't, others are, but there is a confluence of factors with Slater Mill site. We're next to the Blackstone River. The Blackstone River has a high mineral content. Combined with the constant flow of rushing water, that generates a low-grade electric charge. It's up on a hill, so we're visited by a lot of storms, so there's a lot of electrostatic activity in the very atmosphere. The history of the site. Many people toiled in those mills through the years, and obviously there were egregious injuries because all the workings of the machines, the saw blades, the drill bits, they're all out in the open without any real safety measures at the time. This was before we had TDI, or workman's compensation insurance. In fact, that's why those safety practices were engendered, because people were getting hurt in the mills so frequently. So yeah, you've got the history there. A lot of industry, people toiling from sun up to sundown in these mills, rigidly timed work shifts, the accidents, the geographic properties. So yeah, I would be surprised if Slater Mill wasn't haunted.
Right.
I had no idea when I started there that it was haunted. I'd been working there about 3 weeks. I was sweeping it up in Slater Mill Museum. I heard footsteps up above me walking back and forth. Didn't think anything of it. So before I left that day, I went upstairs to the upper level in Slater Mill to say good afternoon to whoever was still up there. Nobody was up there. And then I learned I wasn't the only one having those experiences.
All right. Well, we want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Carl Johnson, everybody.
My pleasure. My pleasure to be here. Love to read the Raven again. In fact, I'll do a tandem reading with Matt Moniz sometime.
Excellent. Sounds good.
Nevermore.
Thank you so much, Tim and Matt.
And you can tell Moniz too when the live audience has gotten to the point here where the wings and the beer become more important than the stage entertainment here. Nobody seems to be paying attention anymore.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming out, Carl. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'll turn the comm over to someone else.
All right.
Someone just as worthy, at least.
Well, Moniz, I want to ask you here before we get into our next guest. I referenced a little bit earlier in the show when we were talking with Jeff about all this controversy that's been going on over the last couple of weeks, and we've been covering it over the last few weeks. And does it seem like we'll go with them, and then we'll grab Donna afterwards if that works? Okay. And there's been so much unnecessary, and I hate to keep using the word drama happening, but it seems like each week that goes by, there's more and more fallout from it. Have you heard anything from anyone coming to you with information or proof of a faking of a haunting?
I get asked.
Just throw that one in. Hopefully that works. I think that microphone works.
Here we go.
There we go. Hey, and we have audio. So people usually give you that kind of information anyway?
Usually people, when they talk to me about old photos. Could this have been faked? Could that have been faked? And but when it comes to new stuff, no, I try and stay away from that, because when you get into that, you're getting into, a lot of times opinion. It's only my opinion if I think it is or isn't.
Right.
I wasn't there, so.
Right. But I mean, if people come forward to you and been like, "Hey, I want to let you in on some information about, such and such person or group or location, actively faking things."
I haven't had anybody come up to me in a while and talk about it, mainly because I try to avoid it.
Probably got 3 different emails this week from people, and I said, not my job. I appreciate you wanting to share the information, not my job. So, it does happen. Well, we'd like to mention welcome. You can tell I've had a few beers too. Like to welcome 2 of our friends here. We have Tina Storer and Rachael Hoffman from Paranormal Expeditions. They are joining us back on Spooky Southcoast. I remember now when you were last on with us, it was your first time doing a radio interview, and you were new to this whole paranormal media thing. And now look at you guys. You guys are all over the place. Things have been going really well for you.
They have. I remember being so scared the first time. It was back in 2010. I was like, oh my God, I hope they don't quiz me on anything.
Yeah, I told Tina if she waited for more than 7 seconds, I'll jump in there for you. Don't worry.
I got nervous.
Well, we really appreciated all of the goodies you brought with you. That was
posters, champagne, whatnot, all
And
kinds of craziness.
If you go back and listen to that show, you can't even tell that you were nervous. I mean, you guys sounded like seasoned pros the first time out, and it's only been better and better for you, because I've noticed now. How many episodes of your show have you had now?
Countless. I would say, pretty much. 26, yeah.
Like
I think.
videos online, yeah.
I think right around there, but we've done hundreds of episodes at this point that have been undisclosed.
Yeah.
And just as much fun.
Yep.
I like the topic that you guys were just talking about, actually. People turning in evidence that isn't necessarily valid to the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
okay. Have you encountered some of that in your experiences lately?
I think we have.
I get a lot of people sending me things that I know are fake. I try not to tell them it's fake. I'm just like, it kind of looks like a ghost app on an iPhone, but if it's real, good catch, But I try not to get into that drama.
Yeah, you don't want to discount someone's personal experience ever. You don't want to say oh no, you didn't feel that, you didn't see that, you didn't hear that. But a lot of people are trying to pass it off to make themselves, I think, more valid in the community, and that's a shame. That's where I feel like it's,
It is. They feel like they need to, if they're getting involved in this, they need to come out of the gate making a name for themselves right away, and not realizing that you're tainting your entire career as an investigator if that's the way that you come out. But now, and you guys are out there doing events now, and I see pictures from when you go to conventions and different haunted events at locations. So you must have people coming up to you all the time and asking you, what's the best way to capture authentic evidence? And really, I mean, what can you tell them? There's no right way or wrong way.
No. That's what I love about this field, is there is no set rules to this paranormal field. It's unbelievable. People are constantly pushing the limits, thinking of new ideas, new techniques. We try something different every time, and we get a different outcome every single time. And,
not without ridicule.
Exactly.
No, definitely some of our methods, some of our ways of dress, some of our manners of dress, it's not for everyone, but I feel like we get some pretty damn good evidence from the things that we do.
What does what you wear have to do with how
That's
you get
what
evidence?
I say. I'm like, when did looks ever matter in the paranormal? But I guess apparently now they do. I guess you can't wear high heels or lipstick.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I still wear mine.
I know.
exactly.
It's
Well, that's because I'm
Fabulous.
5'0", so I have to.
You look fabulous. Any costume that you wear.
Well, I hope you're not implying that I was Santa Claus earlier, because that wasn't me.
I couldn't even believe.
No, I had to run to Radio Shack
I
and get
was
some
so
parts for the
excited
show.
to meet Santa today.
I'm sorry that I missed him.
Me too.
I cry every time.
I'm glad that we got a few pictures, you know.
Yeah.
That's not the Easter Bunny's
We're a
back there
believer.
too. So you did mention the controversy, though. There has been some controversy with you guys, and for the way. I mean, when you're coming into this field, you want to make that name for yourself, and I think that you've been able to do it in a way that is. It doesn't sell short what you do as investigators. People may question the, like you mentioned, the clothes that you wear, but they don't understand that's who you are.
Exactly.
You're not gonna go. I mean, I only see you guys at things like this, but I can't imagine that you're somebody that goes out all the time in a t-shirt and sweats. You seem to be people that enjoy fashion, and you're gonna bring that with you into what you do in the paranormal.
Yeah, we don't like to go outside of the box. Not have the rules in the paranormal. Like I said, we like to defy every odd, and we love fashion. I've always been a girly girl, and I'm never gonna change just because.
And you've tried to create things, clothes and accessories for female ghost hunters to use.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that you've had people come up to you and thank you for that. Like, hey, thanks that I don't have to go into every investigation wearing the same black t-shirt with a logo on it, carrying a backpack. You found a way to make it so that they can retain some of their identity and still be in this field.
Yeah, we like to make it kind of Matrix.
Yeah. Whether you like the black t-shirt or not, it shouldn't even matter as long as you're having fun or getting
Right.
evidence to back it up.
And I even people that do investigations naked, I can't even say that I disagree. And honestly, as females in the paranormal who have endured an entire amount of ridicule for the entire amount of time that we've been present in the paranormal, to see these men kind of reaching out and going topless, and conjuring up their own kind of evidence. We're not back here judging. We're sitting back saying, we were that,
I think it all depends on your intent.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm gonna go out there in like a sexy nurse uniform, trying to get the controversy and just to do it just for the attention, that's a lot different than going in somewhere and wearing a cute sailor hat or maybe having like a little unbirthday tea party and trying to conjure up some evidence. I think your intent definitely matters when it comes to that.
But there is the other side of the coin, though, where people will say we are dealing with the deceased and that we need to have some modicum of respect for them. And I know that, of course, your graveyard shoot, for example, is something that caused a lot of controversy. But I don't know. The way that I see it is you're just getting eyes on what it is that you do as investigators. The same way that we have been for the last couple of weeks talking about this drama and this controversy in the paranormal field, because we know that it gets ears listening to our show, and you're just finding a way to get what it is that you do seen or heard. And there's, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that. And you guys do great work. And if you watch some of the episodes of the PXP show, or if you go out there and investigate with the girls, you can see firsthand that you do take a different approach. I mean, you're not following along with what everybody else is doing on the TV shows, and you're not following along with what the current trend is in investigating. You're taking chances, and I think that's why you get such unique evidence. And I think too, the fact that it's the female dynamic, I do notice that you encounter a lot of female spirits or aggressive male spirits, and I think that those are both related to the fact that you are women, but at the same time you're not backing down from any of this stuff either.
Yeah, and it brings a lot, I think, to the table when you're dealing with motherhood, sisterhood of the paranormal, and bringing females into places predominantly occupied by men.
Yeah.
In their physical state.
I think also the female essence might be more welcoming sometimes to spirits. They're people too. Maybe sometimes people feel more comfortable talking to a woman or a man, or maybe children find that motherness in certain people.
And maybe our pheromones are read a little bit differently, and we're able to bridge that gap, Not to say that men aren't great, because they are fabulous, because you guys are.
I find that most men in the paranormal have trouble talking to women anyway, so if they can have a female investigator helping them out, and maybe they can talk to these female spirits a little more easily. Now, in the time that you've been doing this, though, what would you say is probably the most profound experience that each of you have had?
Man, I feel like every time I go out there, I learn something new. I definitely almost like I've changed my whole point of view throughout the past couple of years. The most profound? I don't even. That's a hard question. Good
I know.
question.
Yeah, it is a good question.
Do you have any?
I think all in all, it's all profound to me. Every time that we go out there, it's a brand new experience.
Yeah.
It's a new chance. It's a new opportunity to try something different. And right now, we are definitely challenging ourselves with trying new things, new age and old age. We don't want to just be known as the girls that depend on those scientific, cold, hard pieces of equipment.
Yeah, using the alternative forms and having the science back it up for you. It's kind of a fun thing to try out right now.
We like feelings and emotions because we're girls. No, it's not just that. It's like it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of the cold, hard science and a little bit of the feelings and emotions that come with being a woman.
It's a little
in
bit
general.
country. It's a little bit rock and roll.
There you go.
But the more bases that you can have covered, then the better results that you can get.
Everyone can relate to it. A little bit of something for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we try to do.
So what's coming up for PXP in 2013?
Hopefully big things.
We actually both have books coming out. I have the Undissolved Matters, the Physical Properties of the Afterlife. It's kind of a dynamic for me that allows you to kind of bridge the gap in biology between human beings and ghostly beings, and learning that there's a sound base in biology for both of them and comparable DNA to prove that we are who we are in this life and the life beyond. And Tina has a little something special for you all.
Mine's kind of starting off more as a blog or something. I haven't really put all my time and effort into it yet, but it's something called Ghosts and Glitter. You know, there's nothing wrong with loving being girly and being into the paranormal, so it's kind of showing that.
Or David Bowie.
Exactly.
My sister
Being
had
a
a David
fabulous
Bowie haircut
man.
last year.
So yeah, I want to start featuring, strong females and basically saying, like, F you to everyone, like, this is who I am, and you're gonna have to accept that. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with loving ghosts and glitter. So.
And everybody can follow along with you on Facebook and Twitter to follow your adventures and
Yes, they can.
and find out where you'll be, because I know you guys are all over the place.
We're all over the place. We love to meet and talk to new people, so please find us, contact us. We love to talk and chat.
Yep, paranormalexpeditions.com.
There you go. And you never know, too, when Tina's going to be on Twitter late at night
Oh my God.
saying some funny stuff. So
Pathetic.
Tina is great. She wears her heart on her sleeve, so just expect whatever she feels.
I'm at work
now.
some nights at the newspaper, and I have Twitter open, and I'll see some of the stuff. I'm like, why are you up?
I know.
I've had people.
It's like 4 in the morning. I'm
I've
like,
had
"Oh, I
people
should go to
contact
And why are
me
you
and they're
watching
like,
Footloose if you're up at 4 in the morning?
The only reason I tweet is because of Tina Storer. Like, that's it.
It's
That's it for
pathetic.
them.
I was like, oh my God, it's 4 a.m. and I'm still tweeting. I'm like, this is really bad. The sun's coming up, and I'm like, can't stop tweeting.
Well, we appreciate it. Us paranormal people, we're up late, so we're used to it. All right, thank you, girls, for joining us,
Thank
and
you so much.
have a great
Awesome. We
Thank
love
you.
you guys
2013.
so
Thank you
much.
very much,
Oh,
girls.
likewise. Thank you. PXP, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Wow, the crowd has dwindled.
Yeah, baby.
Hey, Donna.
Donna, she's talking. I don't know if she wants to join us, but she's talking. She's hugging. I think she's getting ready to leave. All right, well, and I think it's unfair to some degree, the way that we judge the investigators for people. You're not even paying attention to me.
Yeah, I'm paying attention to you. I'm trying to count the number of people still left.
I don't know, but it's still a pretty good party, that's for sure.
Well, we got roughly 27 people still here. All right.
Okay, that's.
Well, thank you for coming, hon.
Thank you. Everybody, you'll see on the camera there's Donna LaCroix. She's hugging Moniz, but we ran out of time to have her come on. Wow.
It's all right.
It's been a long time since I've seen a woman knock off your headphones. It's all right. We'll have you come and we'll have you join us sometime for a full show sometime soon. All right. No problem. All right, no problem. Well,
We'll do it again at some other time, all right?
all right. Have a good holiday. All right, take care. That was a brief pop-on by Donna LaCroix. Thank you. All right, well, yeah, things are wrapping up here, and we've still got about 24 minutes of show left.
You and I can fill that quite easily. We've done much longer.
Well, I'm amazed too that we can pull this off with the technology that we have. I don't think I pulled the stuff out of the box that we're using to broadcast tonight in like 2 years, because ever since we made the move to Spooky TV with the webcams and everything, we haven't really had to pull out our board and our mics and all that stuff.
Well, let's see if we can drag Andrew Lake up here, if he's paying attention.
Andrew, come on up and join us.
You know you're always part of Spooky. You don't really need the headphones.
Yeah, but I look cool with the headphones.
This table over here, by the way, guys, has been remarkably quiet tonight. I expected them to be the life of the party over here. What's going on?
Not enough shots.
I know what it is. Dave stopped drinking. That's why. Well, hello, Andrew. How are you?
Pretty good. Just got a text from Stephanie Burke.
And where is she tonight?
She's at home having an awesome party, and we're missing out on that.
Okay.
We're here on Spooky Southcoast.
Well, we're having an awesome party here, too.
That's right. Santa Claus was here.
Yes, he
Bigfoot
was.
showed up.
Yes.
And we even had Carl Johnson read Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven.
And out of those three, which one is the more real to you?
Santa.
Okay.
Santa always took care of me.
No offense, Carl. So I know that we talked about this a little bit on the show recently, and we said that we can't say too much about this big case that you guys have been working on.
Yeah.
But I know that things have been progressing to kind of an insane degree.
Yes.
Over the last few months, and is this something that's been taking up a lot of your time?
Yes, a lot of my time. 3.5 years I've been on this case.
Wow.
It's one of those cases that you just can't believe everything that's fallen together on it. Probably the most important thing about it is the homeowner is absolutely the kind of person you want owning property this haunted. Anybody else would have packed their stuff and been gone.
Mm-hmm.
This lady never thought about the paranormal. Ghosts were never a part of her life. When she moved into the house, she had strange things happen, but she dismissed them. And as she put it, she said, I became a believer in the paranormal when my mother's false teeth that had disappeared 3 weeks earlier appeared in midair in front of me and fell on the bed right in front of me. She said, that's when I realized I couldn't deny this anymore. And the activity has been absolutely crazy. And it's a long, detailed story, but basically what it comes down to, the homeowner is haunted by people she's known in her past. She has people connected to her that have passed either through marriage, blood, that seem to be around her. And the property itself has a long, dark history in that part of Rhode Island. Western Rhode Island, for a long time, was considered to be like the Wild West. There was no law out there. You look at early newspaper articles from the 1800s, early 1900s, they talk about the crime in Situate and Foster and that part of eastern Rhode Island, and they talk about it as like a godless land. There's no law enforcement. It's out of control. And the more I looked into the area where this house is, it had quite a nefarious history. The road that runs right alongside this the street that this haunting is on was once called Horse Thief Lane. That's how bad the area was. And the spooky thing is the 4 independent spirit mediums that I've brought to the property all immediately get that they used to take people out into this woods and just dump their bodies. And one of the ghosts is a woman named Elizabeth. That's what we've identified through spirit communications. And I know a lot of people at home listening to this roll their eyes when they hear that. That's okay, but I don't. She was just one of the many people that was stuffed out there. But apparently her spirit seems to be the dominant one. But this location has turned skeptics into believers.
So you've got a confluence then of spirits that are attached to the location and some who are surrounding the homeowner separately.
Trying to communicate, yes.
And are they in turmoil with one another, or does it seem...
The funniest thing is one of them is the homeowner's mom was alive when I first met her. Real character of a lady. Name was Anne. And she was raised, a Catholic, Italian Catholic, and ghosts aren't real. That's how she was raised. But she had experiences in the house when she moved in with her daughter. So she was in denial, but if you got to talk to her, she'd open up and admit to things. And she sat me down one night when I came over in her very authoritative way and said, how do we get rid of him? And I said, well, I don't think we're ever going to be able to get rid of him. I said, there's too much going on in this house. I think I think we've got some things going on here that are pretty well rooted and deep seated with the property. I said, but we're going to try and understand why they're haunting. See if we can identify the haunting. See if we can find the motivation. She says to me, well, when I die, I'm coming back here and I'm going to kick them all out. Anne died the same week my dad died 3 years ago. They died within days apart. And we strongly believe that Anne is back at the house, kicking them out of the house.
Wow.
Anne Marie said her mom used to do this shuffling thing with her feet when she used to scoot all the kids out of the house when she was younger. And they have heard that same scuffing sound going through the house. They have smelled her cologne. They've actually heard her voice speak out in the house. And it's quite remarkable. But the main thing that I'm concentrating on is this murder mystery. I was with the homeowner a little over a year ago, and she was telling me about a bizarre sound she'd sometimes hear in the attic. There's no floor to the attic. It's just the joist with insulation. Very neat, tidy attic, no bugs, no signs of rodents, no raccoons getting in, but she was hearing a sound that she could only describe like wind moving around in the attic. So I got up on a footstool and I popped the hatch to the attic, and I'm up there and I'm taking pictures. And a couple of times I thought I saw the shadows move at the back side of the attic, but I'm not sure. Could have been my eyes playing tricks on me. So I had a recorder going and I said out loud, I said, who are you? Why are you haunting Anne Marie? What do you want? And from the other side of the attic, and I caught it, this female voice says, please help me out. And at that point, I realized I was there to help somebody who was trapped in the condition they're in. And as I've said, 4 spirit mediums that I've brought there have told the same exact scenario of this woman's death. I contacted the people who built the house in '63 on this haunted land. They were very receptive to me. I was surprised. I thought they'd think I was a nut for calling them long distance from Rhode Island to talk about the house that they built. And the husband said, I was never home much. I was always working, but my wife had experiences in that house, and I believe her. I'll put her on the line. She described the one ghost that she saw in the house, even though there was much activity. The one ghost she saw, she describes to a T the same ghost that has been seen by 6 other people.
Wow.
The spirit mediums had told me that when the man had brutally murdered his wife, Elizabeth, he wrapped her body in a bedsheet and then bullied one of his employees to help him dump the body out there in the woods in a depression and then throw rocks down on top of the body. Well, I'm talking to the woman, and she's telling me the story about seeing this ghost in her bedroom, and describes the guy the same exact way, and said that he was carrying a bundle of sheets in his arms as if he was looking for a place to put them. If that isn't spooky enough, I'm almost off the phone with them. I'm thanking them just so much for being so patient with me and understanding. And the husband goes, well, there's something else we should tell you. And I'm like, what? He goes, I'll let my wife tell you. She gets on the phone. She goes, well, the weird stuff didn't start happening in the house until my 8-year-old son found the human bones across the street.
Whoa.
And she goes, and I don't think he put them back where I told him. And that's when the house started getting weird. And apparently Anne Marie, the current homeowner, has found out that the house has had a reputation, and everybody in this very quaint neighborhood has just ignored it. But Anne Marie, once she met me and found how ferocious of a ghost hunter I am, and I just won't let this go, we are damned and determined to come to some kind of resolve with this. But I've now got a 9-foot hole in the property. And we found exactly what Tiffany Rice and Stephanie Burke and 2 other psychics said it would find 8 feet down. A pile of rocks that don't belong there. They're all shaped. They're either flat, squared off, and one of them looks like a gigantic stone wagon wheel that was definitely chiseled at some point. And they're all stacked on top of one another. And this ghost Elizabeth says, I'm trapped in amongst these rocks. I'm in the clay, and water runs through here. And there's groundwater running right through where the rocks were. And I'm now in the clay, and I'm now down to where Tiffany and Stephanie feel that I'm going to find something left of her in the clay.
Wow.
And that's what she wants. That's all she wants. And her husband who killed her apparently is haunting the scene of his own crime. And he is the negative influence in the house. And we've had some kind of shocking things happen with him.
So you got to battle that at the same time.
I'm told he's frightened of me. I'm told he intimidates me, and Elizabeth stands by my left whenever I'm there. Quick story about Tiffany Rice when I brought her there. She'd only been there for about 10 minutes. She looks at me and goes, Andrew, were you ever touched on the left arm while you were here? And I said, well, I've been here for so long, maybe something could have happened and I ignored it. But I don't recall that. She goes, well, just remember that. So then when I brought Stephanie to the house, Stephanie is now picking up on this blonde woman named Elizabeth, who apparently is in love with me and is excited that I'm there. But she's not telling Steph too much now. She hasn't told her what this is all about. And Steph looks down at the ground for a few minutes and then looks up and she goes, she wants me to tell you, Andrew, that she did touch your left arm, but you didn't feel it. Do you know what that means? And I was just like, the verification of it. But one Matt was involved in, very impressive. We caught a Class A EVP with Tiffany. She was in the backyard and I was videotaping her. And she goes, I'm getting the name Sally. And she stops in the middle of Sally and goes, Sarah? Does that sound right? Does Sarah sound right? And I go, I at this point in time, I don't know of a character named Sarah yet with this house. She goes, well, hold on to that. So we brought Steph to the house and Tiff was there and we're having snacks because the homeowner's great for putting out snacks.
It's always a plus.
And Tiffany was munching away at the snacks and had a cup of coffee to have with the snacks. And I was saying to Steph, I didn't want to lead her on. I said, now we got an EVP of Sarah. I said, are you getting that as the name of this woman who was killed here? Steph's going, I'm getting Elizabeth for some reason, but maybe I'm getting somebody else, I don't know. And Tiffany goes to chime in, but she's been chewing cashews, so she goes to drink the cashews down. And as she's sipping her cup, as if the person's on top of the microphone of my recorder, this female voice goes, Jasmine. I mean it.
Yeah,
Mike
it's
Markowitz
creepy.
like flipped out when I played it for him. He was like, oh my God. And we were trying to think, was that another name now? Now do we have another name, Jasmine? Well, we were doing a table tipping session, which is a form of seance. Mm-hmm. And I had asked the most helpful ghost that came through that night, a guy named George.
Which was an interesting coincidence.
Yeah, I won't get into that because it's too long of a story, but I said, George, is Sarah connected to this house? And the table didn't move, and I go, George, is Sarah just here because the house allows for it? And the table tipped right up when I said that. And I go, okay, so she's not one of the cast of characters. And I'm thinking, she must have just been drawn to Tiffany. And all of a sudden, Matt goes, oh, wait a minute, George, Jasmine's not a name. He goes, we're talking about the plant, aren't we? And the table tips, yes. And Matt goes, okay. We're talking about Sarah being poisoned with jasmine. She drank jasmine bark, didn't she? And the table flips right up on Matt.
Wow.
And the fact that Tiffany was sipping the coffee when this voice comes through and goes, Jasmine.
Well, it's a combination of, like I said, it's the liquid and her chewing on the cashews and stuff like that. It was that type of trigger.
Yep.
And I was going through because my years of work in toxicology, and I'm thinking it's like, oh wait a minute, certain forms of jasmine are highly toxic. And it's like, and it's a definite smell and things like that. And a jasmine tea prepped to one type of jasmine is not lethal, but prepped the wrong way or with the wrong type, it is extremely lethal.
Yeah, and Steph Burke looked up at the table and said, as soon as Matt got that response to yes, she said, I was told I was killed by a rival. So that's another thing I now have to research. Is there a Sarah in the town records who was poisoned? And maybe I'm hoping one of the historians may know a story about a female rivalry where it led to, a poisoning. It's just fascinating.
And it sounds like a great case because you're able to bring in your own methods of investigation with the way that these women utilize their abilities, and the fact that you are getting verification on the research end of it. You're going through these archives and finding the information and being able to verify what they're telling you. It just sounds like every time you go there, it must further advance your desire to continue with that case.
And the thing is, I've told Matt and Steph and Tiff and Mike Markowitz, if we succeed at this case, we're not going to get rich and famous, but it will validate a lot of what we do. And we know in our every fiber of our beings that we are approaching this field the right way, and we are using methods that work. And like I said, this house has turned skeptics into believers.
And it seems like you're getting a continuous unfolding of the layers of the story, and you're not hitting a brick wall like we so often do in investigations. It seems like it's all just waiting for you to open the next door and go into the next chapter.
We had, it just goes to show you how you can't just take things at surface value. Anne Marie has a room that she calls the closet room that she's basically turned into her girls' closets. All her boots, all her dresses, all her girly stuff. And she got off the phone with me and announced that, hey, Andrew's coming over. And she heard a crash in the hallway. And somehow a ornate decoration along the top of a cabinet in that room looked like somebody grabbed it in the middle, snapped it into 3 pieces, leaving behind the 2 end pieces, and then threw the middle piece up the hallway. Now, that seemed kind of aggressive at the mention of my name. Later that week, same thing, got off the phone with me. She and her son hear a loud crash in that room. A dainty cabinet with glass doors filled with china and porcelain objects hanging on a heavy wire on an angled nail is found in the middle of the floor. The floor isn't dented, the glass isn't broke, none of the delicate items are broken. The nail is still in place and the wire is in place. When I brought Tiffany into that room, she goes, do things get like knocked around and bumped and like banged and knocked over in this room? And Homer and I, we're trying to be like cigar store Indians. We don't want to influence her. We're like, yeah, kind of, sort of. She goes, yeah, you got a guy in here who's awful clumsy. He can't understand his own psychic energy, and he goes to touch things and just knocks them over like he's a klutz. So here I am thinking it was an aggressive reaction,
and it was,
it's this guy who's just a big clod, and he did something the other day. Her grandson, Anne Marie's grandson, was seeing somebody, 1.5 years old, and he's trying to verbalize that somebody's there, and this item just unhooked off the wall and swung down, and the items on the shelf should have slid to the floor. They stayed on the shelf at an angle, like something was holding them on the shelf. Anne Marie walked up and just picked them up off the wall with no explanation why they were still hanging there, and set them down. Later, she tried to demonstrate it and broke the items on the shelf. She was trying to, then she looked and says, "There's just no way of it." But you know,
what about all the coincidences with that place?
Oh, it's really funny. Matt actually installed cable in this house 23 years ago. His first visit to the house, he comes around the corner with that look on his face. He goes, "Ready for this? I installed cable here 23 years ago." Yeah, and the way Anne Marie got the house.
Now you're digging up the holes in the yard.
Yeah. And
while you're there, can you fix the cable that you put in wrong the first?
No, Anne Marie shouldn't have even been able to get this house. It was so weird how it was sat in her lap at a time in her life where she really needed to have a home like this for her son and her mom. It's just so many bizarre coincidences. How she found me is just another long story, but it's like we were all put together. Real quick one to tell you about skeptics being turned into believers. Her brother came up from Florida, and he was staying. They were over at another relative's house nearby, and someone brought up the fact teasingly, "Oh, Anne Marie's house is haunted." So they all start ribbing her. So her brother goes, "Come on, let's go to your house, Anne Marie. I want to hear the stories. Come on, I've never been in a haunted house." They're walking around. She's telling him the stories. He's like, "Come on, Anne Marie, you're pulling my leg, pulling my leg." Well, they went to leave the house, and her nephew, her brother's son, was still in the house. He was in the bathroom. And they're outside in total darkness, no yard lights on, and they're waiting for him to come out of the house. Well, in the dark, they thought Ricky walked out of the house and started to walk down toward the driveway. They all started to follow Ricky. It wasn't Ricky. Ricky was still in the house. This guy had no legs.
Wow.
Was hovering over the ground and disappeared right in front of him. Her skeptical brother turned with his jaw on the ground, profusely apologized, and the next day bought her a digital camera and a digital recorder and said, "You and that guy Andrew Lake, I got to catch stuff." He came up and dug the hole all the way up from Florida because he believes so much in it.
It definitely sounds like a fascinating case. Hopefully someday you can come forward with a lot of the details and
oh yeah,
and we can present it to the audience and share.
We could make a whole episode. I'm telling you.
Because where you're saying, it seems to be a great example of verifying your methods.
Yes.
I think that's more important than anything else, to be able to show that not only does this approach work, but this approach works, and they can work with each other. So it's one of those things where you can not only share a phenomenal story, but share a unique approach to investigating too.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right about that. It's going to be a layered story.
The other thing I like about this case is it gives every one of the little flavors that most hauntings do, and does a lot of the same little, for lack of a better term, effects.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Look at the case of visitation hauntings.
Yeah.
I'll say this on the radio. My dad visits the house, my late father.
Really?
There's a boy with autism that visits the house. He talked to my father. And when they asked, "Who is this guy, Art?" they didn't put two and two together. "Who's this man, Art? What does he want?" He looked right at him and said, "Andrew, please, Andrew."
Wow.
So even my dad is showing up and helping at this location.
Your dad showed up in a couple of different places.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like the studio. You and
Oh, yeah.
I know that.
Yep.
That was just.
We actually heard my father before we started an episode of 30 Odd Minutes. Matt and I clearly heard it.
Well, and then he stopped by when we were in Wareham too that night.
That's right, the table tipping. That's what convinced me to bring Steph and the table to the Situate, Rhode Island case, because I thought, well, maybe we can get information that we can't get through other techniques, and we were proven right that there is a dominant ghost in the house that tells people to keep quiet, and that's what we were encountering. But I wouldn't have found that out if I didn't think outside the box and invite Stephanie and her table. And the homeowner was absolutely blown away by it. I mean, when the table crawled up into her lap, how do you explain that?
And Andrew being somebody who, when we first started talking years ago, when he first started joining the show, it took a little chiseling away at his exterior to allow a medium or a psychic to even be involved, and now to see the way that you've incorporated them into your investigating, it's just fascinating.
Well, for me, it was just that I could never find anybody with that ability. But it's just, the more you do this, the more you meet people. That's how I eventually met Matt, met you, and I've eventually have met spirit mediums that I know aren't lonely people who wear crushed velvet and amulets and think they're psychic. There are legitimate psychics out there, and it wasn't that I never believed in the ability, because as a young boy, I had some women in my life.
But you felt
spooky.
that they didn't necessarily belong in the investigation process.
Well, no, because I've always been a fan of Hans Holzer. Say what you will about the guy. As a kid, I always liked his. His old school approach. So it wasn't that I wasn't open to that. It was that, please help me find somebody that I can work with. And I have since found four ladies. Why is it always women? I don't know. But 4 ladies.
Well, you always attract the ladies, Andrew.
rather good-looking ladies too. And their ability just has absolutely just blown me out of the water. And it's been a huge help. Because why? Because psychics can help the homeowner dealing with it on an emotional level. Explain why this is happening.
All right. Well, we look forward to doing a whole episode on that somewhere down the line, but that about does it for this week's show. We'll be back next week with another great discussion about the paranormal. We want to thank everybody out here, the live audience at Patriots Bar and Grille, Oddfest 2012. We want to thank Matt back there in the studio, too, for putting us on the air. Thank you so much, Matt. Hey, Matt, what's your favorite kind of beer? All right, good. We'll all drink a Bud Light in your honor then. No, I'm just kidding. We'll get you some. Thank you for your help. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Again, if you want to check out the show, we're on iTunes. We're on YouTube. And thank you again for all the many hundreds of thousands of downloads over the last few weeks. So that does it for this week's show. For Matt Moniz, for Matt Costa, for Chris Balzano, for Andrew, Jeff, everybody here at Oddfest, we want you all to stay spooktacular.